Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank everyone for joining us again today. The day was a great looking day. As I see, we're about to have our other co-hosts join us. But the day was a great day in North Florida because the weather was so good. Okay, it might have been a little chilly for some, but I like it. I can put on more clothes. I just can't take them off. I always say, and not get arrested. We want to welcome back Dr. Cobrand, um, and Ms. Turner. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Forgive my tardiness, but good evening, everyone. Uh, I'm excited about tonight's conversation. Finding cancer earlier, new tests, new hope. And
And
pleased to see Dr. Cobran back with us. Last time he was on, we had a great conversation with him. I think our last conversation with Dr. Cobran was about prostate cancer. So tonight we're just talking about cancer in general. So he's keeping up on things, and we want to get all of the knowledge that he is gaining through his work experience. How are you doing this evening, Dr. Cobran?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys all for having this. I think this is such a important platform to be able to talk about some of these. Just talk about various different issues, but we're going to talk about cancer this afternoon. And I was in Jacksonville about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and usually when I come to Jacksonville, I always meet up with Jocelyn Turner. She's just one of these people that I have to meet up with. And I was in town for a conference where we were talking about technology, emerging technology, or new tools to diagnose cancer early. And I was at dinner with Jocelyn. I was like, Jocelyn, have you heard about MCEDs, multi-cancer detection test? And she was like, no. And I was like, we got to talk about this on the podcast because it's one of these things where in a lot of these technologies they're being developed, they're being what you call it, but we need to know about it. Our community needs to be aware of these tests, and so it's essentially, I think it's important for us to have this conversation tonight. But it's essentially being able to screen for cancer when patients are asymptomatic, using a blood test, using one blood test to screen for multiple cancer. So you can, and so I was just like, what? That's coming? That's coming down the pike. And so I was just like, we have to have a conversation. And so I was like, Jocelyn was like, you want to come on the podcast? I was like, absolutely. And so you can tell my excitement.
well, when she asked me, how does this subject sound? I'm going like, absolutely. That's what I want to hear. I heard a little something about it, but I don't know much about it. So when she told me we had Dr. Cobrand saying that, he knows a lot more than I do. But when she said that you were aware of some of those things that were going on, I want to hear from him. If he comes on the podcast, I'm extremely happy. I'm excited. But if he don't, I'm gonna talk to him personally and find out for my own information so that he can educate me on that subject.
Right.
And for our audience, before we get started, I just have to say, cancer touches nearly every family in some way. Many of us have loved someone through diagnosis, treatment, or loss. And one thing we continue to hear from the medical experts is early detection can save lives. But what does early detection really look like today? What new tools are being developed, and how can our communities, especially those who have historically faced barriers to care, benefit from these advancements? That's why tonight's discussion matters. At Pause for the Truth, we believe knowledge is power. We believe prevention is possible, and we believe our communities deserve access to accurate information that helps us make informed decisions about our health. So grab a pen, tag a friend, and lean in as we unpack what's new, what's promising, and what you need to know. And as Tyrone likes to say, let's pause for the truth.
Right. And before you go any further, how about Tyrone? Mr. Jackson, how you doing this evening?
I'm just keeping it symmetric.
Oh, you're keeping the square. Okay, all right. Yeah, your wife told me you was a square, so we good.
Well, and one thing about it, trust me, Tyrone is not just keeping a square. I promise you, Dr. Cabran, if something sparks his curiosity, oh yeah, he's going to speak up, even though he's generally the behind the scenes guy. And of course, as a part of our little trio here, he is we couldn't do this without him. No matter how much knowledge we have, he keeps us on the air. So we are super proud and excited to have him as a part of our team. So Dr. Cabran, Dr. Kane, Tyrone, y'all ready to get started in tonight's discussion?
Let's rumble. Yes.
So Dr. Cabran, start out telling our audience a little bit about your work and what drew you to cancer research.
Sure. So I'll give you I'm just going to be honest. We're in a platform where we're pausing for the truth. And so I think in order to pause for the truth, I'm just going to be honest and tell you. So in my family, my grandmother was diagnosed late with stage 4 breast cancer. And that really bothered me. I was very close with my grandmother. My grandfather passed away from prostate cancer, but then a week after my grandfather passed away, my grandmother was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And it really bothered me because I was like, how did we miss this? Where did we miss this? In terms of, we were so focused on making sure that my grandfather had adequate care and outstanding care, but we, as a caregiver, nobody was making sure that she was okay. She was going in for screenings and stuff like that. And so when I was in graduate school, when this happened, it really bothered me. And so I decided that I wanted to really focus on prostate cancer outcomes, or cancer outcomes in general, and understand barriers to care. And so that's how I got into this avenue. Since we're being honest, about a year, Jocelyn knows this, about a year and a half ago, we're having this conversation. The reason why early detection is such a key thing for me, I see it in my family. My dad was diagnosed about a year and a half ago with stage 4 colon cancer, which spread to his liver. We did not know that it was stage 4 when he was diagnosed, because my dad, and my dad would want me to share this information so that we can reach individuals, right? And so my dad essentially, he was a workaholic, does, provide for the family, traditional, male, as it relates to role, right? And so he worked hard his entire life. He's even retired and then took on another job and worked hard even in that job. And so he was not feeling so well. And, by the time we got him into care, into treatment and stuff like that, I thought when we were getting care for him, I thought that, well, maybe he's going to be stage 1, stage 2. But then when the staging came back at stage 4, it was a shock, even to me, And so here I was again, grandmother had the same issue, and now I'm dealing with the same issue with my dad. With my dad's situation, because he was diagnosed late, the kind of interventions that we have to do with him in terms of spread from the colon into the liver and into the lungs, it's the kind of radiation treatment that he's having there. It's high dose, right? And we're having to monitor him. And so, in fact, today is his birthday, which is a wonderful thing. So my dad turns 74 today. And so we know the life expectancy for males is 74. So he's right on par, right? And I just wish, as I'm having these conversations, I'm in these training, I'm going to these things, and I'm learning about these early detection tools. I'm like, okay, I wish I had learned about this, even for my dad. So when I'm having this conversation tonight, I'm approaching it as if I'm having conversation with family members. And I'm just saying, look, there are tools that are coming that allows us to be able to detect cancer even before you're symptomatic. And so those tools are under development. And so let's have a conversation now. These tools, these blood tests, they're not designed to replace the existing breast cancer screening. They're designed to work in concert, in combination. So we're not, even though these tools are coming, that will screen for you before you even become symptomatic. We still need for you to do your screening. We still need you to do your breast cancer screening in addition to the blood test. So what is being picked up in the blood is the biomarkers, is the tumor signal. So essentially what we're doing is we're looking for signals in the blood that is saying, hey, cancer might be coming, right? And so with these signals, we can test. So these tests, what I think is so unique about genetics and genomics and where it's going is that rather than waiting to say, let's do a prostate cancer test, then do a colon test, then do a liver test, the biomarkers within your blood, we can pull and we can look for multiple cancer at once. And so that's essentially what we're doing, is we're looking for signals in the body or signals in the blood. So just 1 milliliter of blood, and we're able to look for these signals in the body. And so that's where I'm coming to the conversation. I want to have a conversation with family tonight about these tools. And once again, early detection is key, right? So when you're diagnosed, no matter what the cancer is, when you're diagnosed early, your life expectancy increases because your ability to survive is so much more better than when you're diagnosed late. Because when you're diagnosed late, you're dealing with it probably spread into multiple organs, and then we have to treat those organs. It's just a mess. To be honest, it's just a mess. And so that's where we are.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you, when we talk about finding cancer early, really, what does that really mean in plain English? And you just said it pretty much. You want to catch it before it starts to spread to other parts of the body. And that's why we encourage people to do their self-breast examination, do the testicular examination, and just know your body. One of my friends says she always feel all over her body. It's just been a habit of hers, just from top to bottom, trying to feel, does anything manually feel different with her? And that's pretty much is a good habit, right? Wouldn't you say, Dr. Kane and Dr. Cabran?
Yeah, I agree that, we've talked about it in the past many times. Know your numbers, do the usual screenings that people are being widely promoted, that most people know about, things that you should be screening for. And one of the best examples, to elaborate on what you just said, was when Dr. Christopher William came on. He talked about prostate cancer, and he relayed to us how if the prostate cancer is caught within the capsule of the prostate, we can pretty much cure 98, 99% of them. Okay, but once it's outside the capsule of the prostate, we won't cure it. We can treat it and keep people alive, but we won't cure it. And I know that's a pretty simplistic example, being prostate cancer, but that probably can be applied with most of these cancers when you start looking at early detection. Because in order to get that prostate, to keep it from the cancer from spreading outside the capsule or the body of the prostate, the early detection is a necessity. Okay, and so we have testing in line to do just that. Cabran types of testing, whether it's serology and radiology or imaging type stuff, where what Dr. Cabran is relating is, what's really is awesome to me is when he said one blood test that detects, and if I'm not mistaken, it may be up to about 50 cancers or something like that, in theory, is what we're looking at somewhere down the road. And I don't know for sure. I'm just thinking, I thought I read that somewhere.
So you're Dr. Kane, you're right in that it's one blood test, but it can pick up on multiple different cancers. And so, a lot of these tests are currently in clinical trials. So, but even in the clinical trials, they're proven to be that significant in that it can, just one blood test can pick up, it can pick up, lung cancer, it can pick up colon cancer, breast cancer, just the one blood test. And so, where it's, what I think is important for us to also realize is that as a community, African American communities, we tend to not want to be a part of clinical trials because of the issues of Tuskegee. But if we're in the process or on the verge of this precision medicine, precision oncology, or precision cancer care, And we're getting ready to develop these tests wherein the test in theory can pick up on multiple cancers. But then as a community, we decide not to be a part of these studies, then we lose out, because then when this when this test is developed that can pick up cancer with one blood drop, and it's been developed in other communities, is it receptive in our community, right? And so I was having a conversation this afternoon or lunch with a community partner in Phoenix, and he was asking me, we were talking about my dad, and he was asking me, I was like, now that your dad is going through treatment, is he attuned to his body? And so I want to bring this up for us tonight. So as you're going through treatment, or not even that, but we have to be we can't wait for somebody to tell us that something is wrong. We have to know that, okay, I feel like something is off in my body. I feel like, okay, I feel more tired than usual. I feel like, I'm gaining or I'm losing weight more than I need to be. And so we need to be more attuned. And so we can't wait until we get a cancer diagnosis to be like, okay, now I need to kind of be more attuned to my body. And what does attune mean? If you see something on your body that you're like, that looks different, don't wait 3 years for you to kind of, if there's a skin thing that comes up, or you're having this headache, I don't say it like that. You're having this headache and it's been going on now for a year, man, go get checked out. Talk to your doctor. Dr. Kane is on here, Dr. Chris Williams. Have these conversations with your medical provider, because you're like, something don't feel right. So we can't wait until, don't wait until the last minute. And, last minute, stage 3, stage 4, that's a problem. We want to start. So being attuned to our bodies, just like, we know what's in our bank account. We check that, we check that bank account. And we're like, okay, wait a minute. Somebody charged me my wife came to me the other day and said, did somebody charge you 40 cents? I'm like, 40 cents for something? I'm like, 40 cents? I'm like, she knows down to the 40. She knows down to the cents. And so we need to be that attuned.
But you know what, Dr. Cabran, though, I've had people to tell me they don't want to know because there's no cure for cancer, right? So they would rather not know. And how do you convince someone? And from tonight's discussion, I hope people realize that a cancer diagnosis is not necessarily a death sentence, if you will, not to be so harsh, because there are many people who had cancer who survived it. Right. And so it doesn't mean automatically that you're about to check out. So it is important that you get checked out. I'm glad that you said that, like, you monitor your bank account, you check the oil in your car, the gas in your gas tank. You know what I mean? You have to also be in tune with your body as well. If you're just tuning in, joining us tonight on the discussion of finding cancer earlier, new tests, new hope, is Dr. Ewan Cabran. If you have any questions throughout the conversation, please make sure that you post a question, ask us, because tonight's conversation is very, very important. Dr. Cabran, some people hear multi-cancer testing and feel confused. Can you explain what that means in everyday terms?
So everyday term, just a lay simple. So I was talking to my daughters who they're now 11 and 12. And so when we say multi-cancer early detection tests, so these are now blood tests that are under development. A lot of them are going through clinical trials, but they're proving very promising in the clinical trials. And essentially what we can do, a lot of these tests, what they can do is with a milliliter of blood, they can essentially pick up on cancers, because you know that when your body cancer is the abnormal growth of cells, right? That's what cancer is. So cancer is abnormal growth of cells, and these are bad cells, right? So abnormal growth of bad cells, right? And so, but these cells have signatures in the blood, right? And so these multi-cancer tests, what they're able to do is to pick up on signatures in the body or signatures in the blood that says, wait a minute, something is developing in the blood. And it gives signals, it gives genetic signals to, and so that's what these tests are designed to pick up on. Asymptomatic. So before you even start showing signs, this is so early that before you even start showing signs and symptoms, these multi-cancer early, and that's the emphasis on early. It's
Early.
detecting it early, and so traditionally, what will happen is you need a prostate cancer evaluation or you need a breast cancer evaluation, and so the hope with these tests is that we still want you to do your breast cancer evaluation. But say, for example, if your multi-cancer test came back and it's a positive screening for breast cancer, then you go into your doctor and you do a breast cancer screening, right? But because you're getting it, because you're screening for it early, it would essentially give you a jump on the game or a jump on the diagnosis. And so what we're seeing in the research also is that so remember, these studies they're on the clinical trial development, but they're coming. They're showing promise, and so that's why I think we're having the conversations this afternoon. There was a researcher that did, and we have the paper, and I'm going to pull it up. So Tyrone, if you don't mind pulling up the paper, and I'm going to go to slide. So I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to show the paper here on the slide. So this is the paper. So these researchers, what they were able to do, if you notice, it says racial ethnic differences in cancer diagnosis after metastasis. So what they were able to do, to look at use the National Cancer Institute Cancer Registry data, and they were able to do stimulation. So if with these multi-cancer early detection tests, one of the things that it does is it catches the cancer earlier, right? And so one of the things that they were able to do using existing cancer registry data, the line up here, this green line is African or Black. So this is cancer in general, cancer in men in general. So one of the things that these multi-cancer tests can help do is it can help this thing called stage shift. So rather than being diagnosed, so they compared being diagnosed, no change at all. So there's no change. But then what happens if instead of being diagnosed at stage 4, you were able to diagnose these cancer patients at stage 3? So that's one of the things that they were able to do. What they found in males, Black males, that instead of being diagnosed at stage 4, and they looked at 5 years mortality. So instead of being diagnosed at stage 4, if we shift you to being diagnosed at stage 3, we saw that there was a reduction of 13% in 5-year mortality. So men who would die, there was a reduction by 13%. What happens if we shift you from stage 4 to by stage 2 or stage 3 or stage 1? Black males there was a 21% reduction in mortalities for Black men. And we see the same thing holding true for white males. It's 13%, it's 21%. We see the same thing holding true. And so this stage shift, this being able to diagnose cancer early, what these tests are showing is that it can reduce more overall mortality. And so that's why it's important. That's why we need to have this conversation. We see the same thing for females. We're seeing this, and this is the interesting thing about this is that it's using existing cancer registry data. So essentially what we're using is the cancer registry data is everybody that's diagnosed with some form of cancer, regardless of stage. It's because cancer is a reported, when you're in school and they tell you about disease or things that are mandated reported, cancer is one of those things that is mandated reported. And so everybody that is diagnosed is your cancer diagnosis, and not your information, not where you live, that's unethical. We're not talking about that, but just information about just basic information about some of your cancer stuff is in these cancer registry. And so that's what they were able to do. So can we shift you? So rather than being diagnosed at stage 4, what happens if we shift you to stage 3? What happens if we shift you to stage 2, and so on? And so those are some of the things that I think is important. And so and
what that means, very simple, is that you're extending someone's life.
Yep.
Essentially. So like you said, with a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, you may only live 4 years, but if they're able to catch the cancer earlier, then it can prolong your years of life. And people have to, adjust when their family member, particularly say if it's the principal breadwinner of the household. Sometimes when someone gets a cancer, not sometimes, often when someone in the family gets a cancer diagnosis, not only does it affect the patient, but it also impacts the whole family. Tyrone, do we have a question or just a comment that someone posted? Many of the
actually got both a question and a comment, in which they wanted us to discuss the circulating tumor DNA, in which and you can correct me if I'm mistaken. I think that's where fragments of DNA of a particular type of tumor can be detected in the bloodstream, and because of fragments, when cells die, they may they lose some of the DNA. It's because they die. True. And they rupture or whatever, and the DNA gets spread through the bloodstream. And so by someone going in and looking for those particular fragments, since we kind of know what they may look like.
True.
You go in and look for those fragments, and that may give us an early hint as to the presence of a cancer.
Okay.
Which is, I think, what Dr. Jones is saying. And then also, and that can be done early enough because those fragments microscopically, just very small fragments circulating around. Let's say if it was a lung cancer, in the typical way we detect the lung cancer, we start looking at chest x-ray and a CT scan. We have to go through all that. And it may be something there. At what point do we see it? Has it been present for 4 years or 5 years? But if we may not be able to detect it by a chest x-ray for 5 years, or may not be able to detect it for a CT scan for 2-3 years, obviously a little sooner than the lung. But you got to be suspicious of that if that is also, for that to occur, for you to go looking for it. Whereby, correct me if I'm mistaken, if we go out and check for these DNA fragments, you kind of doing an umbrella, just kind of throwing a little catch net out there to look and see what may be floating around in terms of the DNA, and it may point us in a certain direction as to what to go look for. And the most simplistic form of this question and explanation.
One thing we haven't talked about, and thank you, Dr. Jones, for asking that question. One thing that we may have touched on, but I would like for us to talk about it a little more, is what populations tend to be diagnosed later and why? Now, I have an answer.
Well, yeah, your answer is probably like the rest of all 4 of our answers. We know we're looking at 4 of the people at the top. Yes. Population that less likely to be diagnosed in a reasonable time. We also know why, because we are just like you have those DNA markers. We got that those skin markers that might, so to speak, in terms of discriminatory activity as to going to look for cancer, or even entertain the idea that we need to look for cancer in those individuals. So pretty much, and everybody that listens to the podcast knows.
And Dr. Kane, I'm going to follow up with you and ask you, in your practice, what barriers still exist that prevent people from getting screened early?
Insurance.
Yeah.
And
that's the elephant in the room.
Yeah. Insurance is an obvious barrier. But, the individuals themselves, be quite frank with you, they sometimes can be a barrier because, like what you're saying, some people, they act like they don't want to know. They're afraid to know. And so they don't go get tested, And when it comes down to the insurance, it's more one, expensive testing, but two, you also have to look at multiple types of tests to look for multiple cancers. Okay. So that means I got to run you and go get a mammogram, run you and go get an MRI, run you and go get a CAT scan. These people have to take time off from work to be able to go get these testing done. And it's like, look, I'm not afraid of being diagnosed. Some of them are just afraid to be diagnosed, but I'm not afraid of being diagnosed, but I got bills to pay. I can't take the time off to run and do this, so the finances play a big role in it. And then not to mention, if I go get an MRI on my prostate, my copay may be $600.
Yep.
And so the individual is saying like, I really can't afford to go get my prostate checked, but I'm also a smoker, so I need to go and get a CT scan done, and so on and so on and so on. So multiple layers of requirement as to being financially and I guess because of other obligations with family and stuff like that, being financially and physically available to go get these tests done. When if we can do something as simplistic, draw a tube of blood, okay, I say a tube, but it can be a milliliter, as Dr. Cobran has said. But I'm just gonna say a tube. If you're stuck, you get what you need. I don't care for 1 tube or 4 tubes.
Right.
You're stuck already, the pain gone. You know? So but if we can run multiple tests based on that, of course, reasonable affordability, then I'd much rather do that because I can get that blood work done and still go to work that day, not miss a whole lot of time from work, yada, yada, yada.
True.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. So, Dr. Cobran, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere. Sure. But I want to tell you, when we come back, I'd like for us, and we talked about it a bit, but I would like for us to start the conversation again about why it's important to participate in clinical trials. Sure. And it's just so important. But Tyrone always surprises us with a mid-show segment. So Tyrone, take it away and let's see what you have.
Welcome to Pause for the Truth, mid-show minutes. Today is February 17th, 2026. I'm talking to my Black community, my family, my neighbors, because this one matters. For too long, cancer hit us late. Black men face higher prostate cancer rates. Black women die more often from breast cancer, even when we catch it at the same stage. But today there's real movement, from disparity to discovery. Here's the headline: a simple blood draw that can look for signals of multiple cancers. They're called multi-cancer early detection tests, liquid biopsies. Instead of waiting for symptoms or hunting one cancer at a time, these tests scan for tiny fragments tumors shed into the blood. Early signals, earlier action. Why that mattered? Some of the toughest cancers, pancreatic, ovarian, liver, don't have routine screening for everyone. Catching them sooner could shift the odds, especially in communities like ours where late-stage diagnosis has been higher than the wall we keep running into. These blood tests aren't perfect. Some will miss cancers, some flag problems that aren't there, but they're improving fast, and doctors are learning how to use them alongside mammograms, colonoscopies, PSA, and low-dose CT scans. It's both and, not either or. On treatment, the game is changing too. Targeted therapies aim at the exact switches cancer cells flip, so more attack on the tumor and less blowback on your healthy cells. Immunotherapy helps your own immune system recognize what it used to miss, and personalized cancer vaccines built from your tumor's unique markers are moving through trials. Translation, more tailored care, fewer one-size-fits-all guesses. Access has to keep pace with innovation. Coverage policies are evolving for these blood tests, Medicare and private plans included, but it's not uniform yet. Ask your doctor what's available where you live, what's covered, and what assistance programs exist. Don't leave money or options on the table. Research is getting more inclusive too. Large national studies focused on Black women and Black communities are expanding. That means better data on risks we actually face and trials designed with us, not just for us. Community health workers are stepping up as navigators, breaking down medical jargon, tackling transportation and scheduling, and rebuilding trust. And more clinics are training staff on cultural competence and implicit bias, because respect saves lives. So what do you do today? Ask your doctor about age and risk-based screenings you may already qualify for. If a multi-cancer blood test is available, discuss whether it fits your situation. Know your family history. Bring a friend or CHW to appointments. Get answers in writing, coverage, follow-ups, next steps. We're not just flying through the system anymore. We're learning to soar above it. Early awareness.
Wow, Tyrone, you never cease to amaze me. You're on point with it. So thank you. Joining us again is Dr. Ewan Cabran, and Dr. Cabran is a career scientist, is what I like to call him. And that might be his title at work, but he's not a medical doctor. That's why we have Dr. Kane on. Yeah. But Dr. Cabran, I started or ended the first segment with a comment to you about clinical trials. Why is it so important? And you touched on it earlier, but I'd like to reiterate why it is important for everyone or as many people, a cross section of people, to be involved in clinical trials.
It's important because it diversifies the patient population within these clinical trials. So say, for example, if these multi-center, multi-cancer early detection test is being developed and there's only a really small segment or no segment of your population in that data or in that pool, then is it going to work for us? Is it going to work for your community? And so it's that important in that you want to make sure that when these tests are being developed, it's accurate and it's sensitive to many different populations. And so I think that's why it's key. And so that's why being a part of clinical trials. Now, granted, we understand the history of clinical trials within certain communities. We had the Tuskegee studies. We had many different populations impacted by the mass incorporation of people in internment camps and stuff was, so along those lines. But I think along those lines, there's so much safeguards in place now. Now, will somebody treat you unfairly? That can happen. There's some biases that can happen, but a lot of these safeguards are in place now where a lot of these clinical trials, they're ethically approved and they have multiple boards that will review ethically. And then as these studies are going on, their internal or interim analysis that are being done to kind of see, okay, what's going on with the outcomes. If the outcomes are favorable, then we need to give everybody the treatment. And so along those lines, it's not where it used to be, but we need to, Tyrone said it in the halfway segment, we do need to rebuild trust. That's the key thing. And so I think in order to do that, but we do need you to participate in these clinical trials because it's that important.
And one of the things that I've kind of discovered as I've gone through this journey is it is important to talk to your doctor, your primary care, about clinical studies. Mm-hmm. If you're interested in being a part of them, one of the things that was most interesting to me is unless you are selected or told by it, you don't really know. So have the conversation with your doctor and rely on his expertise to tell you whether or not that clinical study has what is going to be in your best interest, whether or not it's risky, because he's more familiar with the vernacular, the information, and that type of study.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Tyrone, because Dr. Kane, that was going to be my next question to you. So someone's listening tonight, and Dr. Cabran, it doesn't mean you can't chime in. If someone's listening to this conversation tonight, what can they say to you, Dr. Kane, or their primary care physician tomorrow, or if they call to make an appointment to say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about my risk for cancer. Can a person make that type of appointment with you, Dr. Kane? And what would you say to them in terms of what types of screenings might they take that they would be eligible for and insurance would cover in terms of their specific risk for different types of cancer?
Well, one of the things will just wind up being let's separate this into two different sections. The traditional stuff that we've been doing all the time, depending male, female, whatever it may be, I elaborate on, PSA and then the other tests necessary, CBC, yada, 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 other chemistry tests, okay? Mm-hmm. Obviously, women, we start looking at mammograms and other serological testing. Smokers, we look at CT, low-dose CT scan in terms of monitoring them, and so on and so on. Those are traditional testing. Based on the conversation what we have this evening, that if the research that they're performing with these multiple, the MCA, they say, multiple multi-cancer early detection tests, based on that, that will be a hodgepodge of quite a bit of testing that can be done, again, like we said, with just that one blood test. Now, again, because the research is currently ongoing, I can't give you the accuracy or anything along that line. But that's where clinical research comes in, because sometimes what's accurate for one group of people may not be as accurate for another group of people. I give a perfect example: pulse oximeters seem to tend to be less accurate in African Americans because of our increased pigmentation than our white counterpart. Of course, when that research was done on those pulse oximeters, it was done with Caucasians and not so much with African Americans to a great degree. And that is because, again, as we said earlier in the podcast, we don't look to participate in clinical trials as much as we should. I think what patients and where we kind of trying to go with this whole clinical research deal is that if you trust your primary care physician, okay, with your life, that you come into him or her on a daily basis or routine basis, not daily, but routine basis, to manage your diabetes and to manage your blood pressure and to manage your heart attack. You trust them to do that, then you should be able to trust them to discuss with you what clinical research or what clinical trials is safe and effective for you to participate in. Okay, that's where the trust comes in at. It has to be someone that, if you give him trust, it's like what he said about his wife, she down to that penny. He trusted his financing with her. So he gave her the trust. It's like, okay, she's gonna watch every penny I got. I don't have to worry about anybody stealing unless my wife ain't here. She gonna get it. Okay. So he trusts his wallet too. He probably just throw it over there. Here you go. Take what you need. What you need to do. Then the same scenario occurred with your physician that you trust, primary care. My good friend Dr. Kenneth Jones was general surgeon, who I trusted implicitly when it came down to surgical matters and medical matters that he has expertise in. I consulted him for those, whether it was about me, my family, or my patients. I trusted him, so I went to him and asked him questions about that. Patients should do the same thing with their primary care physicians in terms of clinical research. Or their primary care provider to whatever degree, because these days the physicians are spread kind of thin, and so a lot of providers wind up being, PAs and nurse practitioners. But if you trust those individuals, then you can allow them to help you make decisions on what clinical trials to participate in.
True.
Yeah, and also one thing I learned is that not all clinical trials include taking medications. They're not experimenting with you, and that's what people think of. That it's a lot of it has to do with I don't want to take any medicine. No, sometimes it's just a matter of asking you questions. It may wanting to know about your family history. It may just want to follow you for some years. Last year we had the folks from the American Cancer Society on about the multi-year study that they're doing, watching Black women to really see them, about their cancer diagnosis over an extended period of time. So do your research, and because there are so many different options, but if we know that, and that's what I like about that study that the American Cancer Society is doing, is because if they can look at you today and predict, if you will, what can happen with your children, your daughters, your granddaughters, then wouldn't you want to be able to have some type of impact? One thing I want to talk about, Dr. Cobran, I know you said those multi-cancer tests are still they're still being evaluated, if you will, but oftentimes new innovations don't get to regular folks.
Right.
only gets to people who are elite or who can afford it. How can everyday people advocate for better screening options in their communities? And Dr. Kane, this is also for you.
Dr. Kane mentioned it initially where he talked about that relationship with that primary care physician. I think that's key. If you have a solid relationship with your primary care, that's one of it. So that's one thing I can see from a researcher. If you have a very good relationship with that primary care physician and they're like, okay, you're off, your numbers are off this year, I'm suspicious, I might need, further evaluation and testing. I think you can't go without, it's kind of like, you can't go without having a primary care. You can't go multiple years without having a conversation with your primary care. And so I think that's a place to start. And I'll ask Dr. Kane to weigh in as well, but that's a place to start.
Well, I look at it, I guess this is kind of a simple analogy. You're taking the bus because you want to go downtown. Okay. You know where you want to go. Okay. And what you need to do to get there, but you got to trust the bus driver.
True.
They have to drive you there.
Yeah.
Okay. And you putting your trust in that bus driver to take you to the proper place and to drive that bus properly. You don't want anybody that's want to go around the 20-mile bend doing 140 miles an hour. The other thing that I will say when it comes down to doing these clinical trials is what you said, Ms. Turner, earlier, and Dr. Cobran endorsed as well, is that, again, not all trials are result in treatment for medical conditions, okay, or involve treatment for certain conditions. Some of them, many of them are just investigated. And when you participate in them, say if we were to do this, participate in this, one of these MCED studies, more than likely, one, it won't cost you anything, okay? Two, the information provided may give you a heads up on what's going on in your body that you could not have afforded if you had to pay out your pocket for these same tests. Now, remember when Alzheimer's, we used to be there with no test for Alzheimer's. We didn't prove you had Alzheimer's until you did the biopsy of the brain once you're dead. But once they start doing radiological testing, as far as MRIs, for amyloid and, tau proteins, once you start doing that, and then even now to these days, they got actually tests, serological tests for Alzheimer's. If you participated in those, if you would have to pay for, especially the imaging at that time earlier on, about $60,000 to $70,000 you would have to pay. Medicare didn't pay for it, insurance company didn't pay for it, and so on and so on. But there were testing being done by multiple institutions. And in this community, I'm going to go ahead and mention Mayo, that were being performed by Mayo, that those testing were free. $60,000, $70,000 worth of imaging that was free and would help you make the diagnosis of Alzheimer's. Now, insurance are beginning to cover that now, but 4 or 5 years ago, it did not cover that. And so that person, that individual had an opportunity to get some early detection on Alzheimer's by doing these innovative studies free of cost. Okay, so it becomes incumbent upon your primary care physician to be aware of that. And if there are studies out there that they can get you enrolled in it because they're suspicious of something ongoing with you along that line, then we go and we seek to participate in that study. And you ask him or her, hey, can you help me out here? Okay. Or they may suggest to you, I've done it. I suggested to my patients, you're having some memory issues. Let's go on ahead and there's a test. There's a trial over at Mayo. Let's go ahead and participate in that dementia trial. And again, $70,000 worth of testing was totally free. And it was not treatment-based, meaning there was no drugs. So there was nothing fearful to do. Maybe except for get a little needle in your arm because you got to get a MRI or something done. But you do that, and it ain't related to research. You do that if I order you to go and get a CAT scan because you got a kidney stone, or whatever it may be.
Now, I want to chime in there and testify because I have participated in a couple of prostate cancer clinical trials. It's important that we let our viewers and listeners know that oftentimes these trials are fairly intensive information. There were days I went in and, I was there for 2-3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying that to say not to dispel you from going, but that you have a clear understanding of what it might be. And I found the information that I gained from even being in the clinical trials as helpful as anything else as well. So it's a great opportunity to not only participate and help others of your ethnic group, and also to gain additional knowledge about what is going on within your body. And so I definitely wanted to chime in on that.
Oh yeah, it's a great educational process. It's a great educational process participating in these clinical trials. And you can also go back and talk to your family members, because what a good possibility that if you got prostate cancer, that means your brother, your brother or your dad is at high risk for it. And based on what we learned from Dr. Christopher Williams, your sibling, your female sibling may be also at a high risk for breast cancer. So a lot of that is what you learn from participation. Not to go bring up, I'm not before because I know time is running short.
Sure.
And as I always say, there's never enough time. We can do another whole hour on this subject.
Right.
But what I guess I want to bring to the opportunity, and you may not be able to get that information right now, but I'd like to bring to opportunity for our listeners, that whether they're the physicians or the patients, the MCED testing and stuff of that nature, if there's any way that these people may be able to, who they need to contact to discuss participation in these kind of clinical this clinical trial in particular.
Sure. That's a good question, Dr. Kane. So you can go to clinicaltrial.gov. That's the first place, clinicaltrial.gov, and search for MCEDs, MCEDs. There's the Pathfinder study. That's one that's currently going on. And when you go to clinicaltrial.gov and you look for these MCED study, there's a contact person there that you can contact. They're usually study coordinators, and you can reach out to them, talk to your primary care physician and say, hey, I'm interested in this study. They'll do the eligibility criteria, whether or not you're eligible or not to participate. And Tyrone's going to pull up clinicaltrial.gov. And, this is clinicaltrial.gov. And I would, if Tyrone don't mind, just put in MCED, see what comes up.
While you're doing that, your physician can also go as clinicians. Remember, we can go and look that up on behalf of our patients.
What is it? MSE?
No,
MCED.
MCED.
Yeah.
What is it?
MCED.
MCED. Mary Ed Doctor.
No, that's not it. MCED.
MCED.
ED. Ed as an Edward. E is an Edward. There you go.
But it doesn't show up anything. It only shows that MCED. It doesn't show. It automatically completes it and doesn't show anything.
What about other term? What about other term? Oh,
okay. There we go.
There you go. Yep.
And so this one, there's a study for firefighters. If we scroll down, this is another one. This is one right here in the asymptomatic population. It's not quite yet enrolling or recruiting, but it does. So a lot of this can be filtered through your primary care. But if you're interested, one of the cool things about research ethics, if we're doing a clinical trial, it has to be registered on clinicaltrial.gov. So any study that is currently for any disease or any kind of condition, if it doesn't have that clinicaltrial.gov number, be real suspicious. Be real suspicious. So if somebody comes to you with a study and there's no clinicaltrial.gov, or Run.
And don't forget, as you know, what we also want to make sure is that people understand, while you may participate in that trial, none of your personal information is reported to, in a broad fashion. It's kind of like what they call a blind study, in terms of they blind your personal information.
True.
Okay. Dr. King may go in there and he wants to do a prostate cancer study, and I may participate in it, but my personal information doesn't go out to say Dr. King got prostate cancer. Okay.
Sure.
Based on the clinical trial, yada, yada, yada.
Dr. Cabran, where do you see cancer detection heading in the next 5 to 10 years?
It's multi-center. So Tyrone have these two. So two really good institutions in the Jacksonville area. So we have Mayo and Mayo has a clinic for MCEDs. And so Tyrone's gonna. So this is MD Anderson. But if we go back to your other one, if you go to Mayo, the website. So here's MD Anderson, and I'm sure Baptist Health. MD Anderson has a facility in Jacksonville, but Mayo has a multi-cancer clinic at Mayo, and they'll give you an overview. So if you scroll down, Tyrone, so it gives you an overview of what's going on. So it says multi-cancer early detection test. It's a type of blood test that looks at many types of cancer at the same time. And so it gives an overview. Keep scrolling down, Tyrone. And then, but I think Dr. Jocelyn Turner, I would say Dr. Turner, I do, in terms of your level of expertise and wealth of knowledge in terms of the community, this is where we're going in terms of, but once again, this is not going to replace traditional screening. It's going to make it better. It's going to add to it, right? And so this is where the technology, I would say, in the next 2 to 3 years, this is where we're going in the next 2 to 3 years. And so these are some of the things that's available. And then, so the reason why I pointed to MD Anderson and Mayo is that these are places that are in your backyard in the Northeast Florida area. And then, so this is a site that we can make available, and, you can reach out. And then also the MD Anderson Tyrone, the MD Anderson website is another one, because MD Anderson is in, and they talk. And one of the really cool things that I like is that this drop of blood, like if you scroll down a little bit, Tyrone, this drop of blood thing, it went back. I like the fact that it's showing you that it doesn't have to be this invasive thing. It makes it, I really like this image where it's a drop of blood and we're looking, so that's where we're going into the next 2 to 3 years.
But all the things from that drop of blood that you can, that they can look for. I was going to ask you one last question,
Sure.
Dr. Cabran, before we finish, but I think I already know the answer. What excites you most about cancer research?
What excites me most is that the technology is moving so rapidly, but at the same time, it's being able to impact lives, community, having conversation. I love when I can go into the community and we can have these dialogues, these conversations. And if somebody learned one thing today that has an impact with them being diagnosed stage 2 versus stage 4, I think that's the kind of things that excite me. That's the kind of things that I'm like, okay, if you were able to walk away with one thing today, so in terms of early detection, we don't want you diagnosed at stage 4. You have to do too much things at stage 4 as opposed to being diagnosed stage 1 or 2. And so that's the thing that's exciting.
Well, thank you. It's 7:30 and we're wrapping it up. Tyrone, did you have any final thoughts?
Well, Dan, thanks first of all for Doc for coming on. I really enjoyed talking with you before the show and listening to all the good information that you gave us. I like what he said about, that the technology is moving us forward. And as everyone knows, I've been called the behind the scenes technology guy here, but in my heart, I'm a technology person. And I was reading articles that's talking about AI technology. Yes. And it sounded very interesting. The two fields that they believe AI would have the greatest advancement for humankind is medicine and environmental.
If used properly.
Well, no, they've been saying there are questions that have been put before panels of individuals in these fields.
Right.
And there are computers that are working on issues that will take them hundreds of years to solve. With the new advancements in AI, those things will be cut into 5 and 10 years. Those things will therefore be an advantage for humankind.
Agreed.
Thank you, Tyrone.
Absolutely.
Dr. Kane, what are your final thoughts?
Well, pretty much, Dr. Cobrand has taken us on a good journey of what to expect with MCEDS and what it means, and as well as how do we go about participating in those types of research. And what Tyrone has just said is that early on, we're still in the discovery phase, but thanks to AI, we can rapidly move a lot faster than if we were back in the day where we're using pipettes, taking a drop of blood and putting it under a microscope and looking at it. Those things are done now in milliseconds. What it took us 5 minutes to do, just looking up under a microscope. And even then, it was a lot of a guess by that one individual. Whereas AI and technology can look at many multiple samples or multiple trials and compare them all and come up with a reasonable approach to certain problems. And then when time does happen that these tests become more accurate, of course, being fine-tuned with AI, by AI. Of course, when this time become more accurate, then I don't have to just keep trying to rack my brain guessing. I'm gonna back it up and make sure what they're telling me is correct. But I don't have to rack my brain with a little bit I got in terms of trying to make sure every aspect of my patient care is being looked at, and that we can provide early treatment for something, early detection and then early treatment for something that before would have took 5, 10, 15 years before we even detected it, no less the amount of time it took to treat it, and no less whether or not that would be successful or not in terms of our therapy, because we were so far, the disease had advanced so far that we had something to cure it. But if we would have known early enough, we could have cured it. But because we didn't know early enough, we lost that battle.
That's it, Dr. Kane?
Yeah.
So, Dr. Cobrand, thank you for sharing your expertise and helping us better understand how emerging cancer detection tools could change lives. Conversations like this remind us that science is advancing and hope is real. But here's what I want our listeners to remember. Information only helps if we act on it. Have the conversation with your doctor. Know your family history. And here are a few things that we did not talk about, some ways that you can reduce your cancer risk. Eat for protection, and that means fill half your plate with fruits and vegetables. Move your body regularly. Target 150 minutes a week of moderate activity. Maintain a healthy weight. Avoid tobacco, all forms. Limit alcohol. Women, no more than 1 drink a day. Men, no more than 2 drinks per day. Protect your skin. Use sunscreen, SPF 30 plus. Stay up to date on vaccines. Some cancers are linked to infections like HPV vaccine, hepatitis B vaccine. Get recommended screenings. Early detection saves lives. Stay current on mammograms, colon cancer screening, cervical screening, prostate discussions, lung screening. Manage stress, sleep well. Reduce environmental exposure, like avoid secondhand smoke. Use safer cleanings, personal care products when possible. Wash produce, follow workplace safety guidelines. Bottom line, cancer prevention isn't about perfection. It's about daily choices, supportive environments, and access to care. Small changes add up. And don't let fear keep you from getting checked. Early detection is not just a medical phrase. It's a life-saving opportunity. At Pause for the Truth, our goal is simple: to bring you trusted information that empowers you, protects your family, and strengthens our community. If tonight's episode helped you, share it. Invite someone to watch the replay. Start the conversation at home. Because when we know better, we can do better. and we deserve better. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. And until then, stay informed, stay empowered, and keep pausing for the truth.
We appreciate you spending time with us on Pause for the Truth. Ms. Jocelyn Turner and Dr. Rogers Kane are grateful for your support. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, catch us live on Twitch, and most importantly, subscribe on YouTube. A big shout out to Tyrone Jackson at Call Tyrone IT Services for keeping us connected. Join us every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for more enlightening discussions. Thanks, and see you next week.